Fusion GPS founder Comey wired millions to anti-Trump dossier author by Sean for YourNewsWire.com. Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson has admitted that former FBI Director James Comey wired millions of dollars to the author of the thoroughly debunked Trump-Russia dossier. I say put him away. In testimony to Congress, Mr. Simpson stated it makes sense to him that the FBI paid money to the former British spy who was contracted by Simpson's company to produce the infamous 35-page Pissgate dossier. Breitbart.com reports Fusion GPS hired Christopher Steele, a former British intelligence agent, to do the work cited in the anti-Trump dossier. Last July, Steele reportedly traveled to Rome, where he met with an FBI contact to supply the agency with the anti-Trump dossier and other information he found during the course of his anti-Trump work. Steele's dossier reportedly served as some of the basis for the FBI's investigation into Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and unsubstantiated claims of coordination with Russia. It wasn't Russia. In August 22nd, testimony released last week and reviewed in full by Breitbart News, Simpson stated that Steele's outreach to the FBI was something that Chris took on his own. Simpson stated that as far as he knew, Fusion GPS did not fund Steele's trip to Rome to meet with the FBI. He said he believes that the trip expenses may have been reimbursed by the FBI. I don't think we did, Simpson stated, referring to whether Fusion GPS paid for Steele's travel to Rome to meet with the FBI. I have no information that we paid for it. He continued again. This sort of emphasizes, the point I was making earlier, which was this was something that I considered to be something that Chris took on his own based on his professional obligations and not something that was part of my project. So it makes sense to me that he was reimbursed by them, he stated, referring to the FBI. Just before those statements, Simpson was asked, "Do you know who paid for Mr. Steele's trip to Rome to meet with the FBI?" Simpson replied, "I have read recently that I think in a letter from Senator Grassley that the FBI reimbursed the expense, but to be clear, that's it. He was, to my knowledge, not been compensated for that work or any other work during this time." Simpson was likely referring to a March 6th letter from Senator Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, requesting information and documents about the FBI's ties to Steele, including whether the agency utilized Steele for its investigation into Trump and whether the FBI paid Steele or intended to pay him. The Washington Post reported in February that Steele reached an agreement with the FBI a few weeks before the election for the Bureau to pay him to continue his work, according to several people familiar with the arrangement. Ultimately, the FBI did not pay Steele, the Post reported. The Post report continued. Communications between the Bureau and the former spy were interrupted as Steele's now famous dossier became the subject of news stories, congressional inquiries, and presidential denials, according to the people familiar with the arrangement, who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the matter. The FBI's National Press Office did not return a Breitbart News request seeking comment or whether the agency paid for Steele's Rome trip or reimbursed him for any expenses. In March, CNN cited people familiar with the matter as saying that the FBI reimbursed Steele for some expenses. CNN reported the FBI reimbursed some expenses of the former British intelligence operative who produced a dossier controlling allegations of President Donald Trump's ties to Russia. People familiar with the matter said. An official familiar with the discussion said the FBI didn't hire Steele as an informant, but that the arrangement instead allowed for expenses to be paid. It couldn't be learned how much he was paid and for how long. In his interview on Capitol Hill in August, Simpson was grilled about whether he had any knowledge of previous financial arrangements between Steele and the FBI. Here is a transcript of the exchange, which includes questions from lawmakers and interjections from Steele's attorney, Josh Levy. Question: was Fusion aware of the reports that the FBI considered? Let me rephrase. Was Fusion aware that the FBI considered paying Mr. Steele to investigate Mr. Trump and his associates? Simpson: when? At any time. Levy: when you say paying, what do you mean by that? Davis: providing money. Levy: for a fee? Are you talking about reimbursements? Davis: fees or reimbursement in this context. Simpson: we've learned that. We know that now. In fact, it was. Levy: learned what? Well, Simpson: well, we learned sometime after the election, we learned that Chris had discussed working for the FBI on these matters after the election, and that didn't happen. Question: did Mr. Steele discuss that with you at the time? Simpson: he didn't discuss it. I don't remember exactly when he mentioned this to me, but he mentioned to me at some point, I think after the election, that he had discussed this with them. Foster: so prior to news reports to that effect? In other words, you learned it from him. Levy: wait, you asked two different questions. I'm trying to figure out which one you want him to answer. Foster: the last one. Levy: what was the last one? Foster: you learned it from the news and not from him? Are you saying you learned it from him? Levy: learned what from him? Foster: that he discussed with the FBI having the FBI pay Mr. Steele. Simpson: I don't remember. Levy: the witness is yawning. Let's take a break. Muse: we will attribute that to fatigue as opposed to the questions. Well, they paid part of it probably. That's what I'm thinking. This is interesting. Could it have been Comey that sent some money to them? Because they did send some money for sure. This is to the author. And then they stopped. The millions of dollars that you think that that Hillary gave them, and they paid these because Hillary paid like 10 million bucks for this, like 9 million, 10 million bucks. So how did she pay him? Maybe through the FBI that was wired the millions, but not directly from the FBI, because they did say that the FBI at the end they didn't pay him. They offered to pay him like 50 grand or something. But the FBI was involved, I guess, in wiring Hillary's money. They claimed the DNC, but maybe they were the ones that were wiring the money to Fusion. That's what they're saying here. This is very interesting. Yeah, because who wired the money to Simpson? They said through the attorney, was made payments, but now they're saying Comey wired millions to the anti-Trump dossier. This is confusing. Well, we'll keep you informed as more information comes up, but I'm more than sure something took place with these people here. They were all in on it, basically, the bottom line, and they're all going down for this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and again, thank you so much for watching.